Independence Day!
Huh?
No!
Okay, guys, so James Gunn just announced his DC Chapter 1 slate. And I have thoughts. um, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to upload this video in its entirety without any edits just because I think this is going to go on for a bit because of what I have to say. And I don't want to take all day to edit this video. I want to get it out today if I can. Okay, yeah, so apparently James Gunn thinks that emulating the comic book world it needs to go to the next step where soft rebooting it becomes the normal for everything because he did what I fucking thought he would do, and I'm so upset. There's some stuff in here that's good, but there's other like I would have respected him so much more if he just fucking rebooted the entire thing. Get rid of everyone. But he did what I thought he was going to do. He cherry picked everybody who I thought he would cherry pick. Like pretty much I'm gonna assume all of his Suicide Squad people are staying because Viola Davis is staying for this Waller series they're doing, and to me that suggests that Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn still, but like soft rebooting this shit is not the way to go. You need to just fucking get rid of everyone. Thank God Matt Reeves' Batman is untouched by this, and Todd Phillips' Joker. James said that that is a part of DC Elseworlds, is what they're calling anything outside of continuity. So thank God that is not touched, because he does not need to be a part of this shit show. But like, you know why the soft rebooting is going to be the worst, especially for somebody who loved the Snyderverse and wanted to see it finish. And you know what? I'm over that. Like I've gotten past the fact I have accepted that it's done. So what I wanted was just a full reboot. I've accepted that the Snyderverse is done, but now, judging from comments that James makes in the press conference, apparently Jason Momoa is staying as Aquaman because they're already talking about a third Aquaman film. They said that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom leads into Chapter 1 of the DCU. And they're saying Ezra could possibly stay as the Flash. And they're saying that, well, obviously Viola Davis is staying. And, because, the biggest part of why that will piss me and a lot of other fans off is because every time you look at those actors in that role, you're going to be wondering, why isn't Ben here? Why isn't Henry Cavill here? Why isn't Ray Fisher here as Cyborg? Like, what is the point of keeping these actors around? I understand that, and I love them. Like, I actually think Ezra did a really awesome job in the Snyder Cut, despite of all of their problems they've had in real life with the law. I think they've done a really good job, and I think that I don't want these actors to go, but if you're gonna reboot it, fucking reboot it. So honestly, out of this slate, the stuff I'm most excited about are all the characters that were not done previously in the old DCEU, because there's no attachment there with any actors. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through each announcement and like just discuss it, give my thoughts on it. So before I do that, like I said, Gunn said that the DC Elseworlds, which is outside of continuity of any of this stuff, will include the Batman Part 2, which was announced for October 2025. So I'm so excited about that. Like, the Batman is one of my new favorite superhero movies of all time, possibly my favorite Batman movie of all time. As much as I love Ben Affleck, Matt Reeves totally blew it out of the water with that film. I love it. And the Joker Part 2, which will also be in that DC Elseworlds space, which I'm excited about that as well. Okay, so let's get into this. So yeah, Safran and Gunn announced Chapter 1, which is called Gods and Monsters. It's kind of funny because the way they kind of introduce this, in a way, sounds a little bit like how Zack Snyder talked about DC with the mythology angle. So it's a little interesting that they want to say, no, fuck you, Zack, you're out, but they want to also keep some of his tonal ideas. But that's just an observation. Anyway, Gods and Monsters is Chapter 1, and there's a list down here of all the projects, so I'll go through that. DC Studios is unprecedented, Peter Safran said. It is a standalone production entity and studio. It is the first time ever that everything DC related, film, television, live action, animation, gaming, is all centralized under one creative vision, that of James and myself. Cool. I mean, like, again, this sounds in theory really cool, but they should have just fucking let the Snyderverse finish, do Justice League Part 2 and 3, let Zack go out with a bang, then reboot everything, and then you can do all this stuff. Think of how much money that would make. I guarantee it would make money, but the pundits on Twitter who think that Zack Snyder is the devil incarnate would tell you otherwise. Moving on. So the DCU is in its very much earliest stages. No directors have been attached to any projects, although they're very close. That's the other thing. I need to see who's directing this stuff. I swear to God, if James Gunn is directing Superman as well as writing it, I'm going to be very nervous. I don't trust him to make a Superman movie that isn't one-liners undercutting serious moments every 5 minutes. I don't want Superman, like, Superman can be lighthearted. I understand that's what the character is. Even though Man of Steel offered a nice different take, I understand that Superman's lighthearted. I'm a huge Superman fan. But I don't want one-liners every 5 minutes. I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't seen any of this stuff yet, obviously. This is my knee-jerk reaction to this news. The exception is Viola Davis. That's not necessarily true because it says they've left the door open to Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, and Zachary Levi to continue playing Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, and Shazam. But Gunn reiterated that Henry Cavill. This is one of the biggest, like, piss-offs for me right now, because with Ben Affleck, I get it. He doesn't want to. Like, as much as I love Ben, he doesn't want to do it. But Henry wanted to continue with Superman. They fucking put him in Black Adam. And Gunn states that he doesn't want Henry because it's a young Superman. Well, why are you writing it as a young Superman then? Write it differently. Do you know what you could do with an older, more experienced Superman? All the possibilities that could come out of that? All of the cosmic level villains that he could fight, like Brainiac or Parasite. Or Parasite's not cosmic, but just something different. Like Mongol. Like, there's so many possibilities, and they're just fucking flushing it down the toilet to go back to Metropolis, which, I mean, we've seen it before. Moving on. They've put together a writer's room of Drew Goddard, Jeremy Slater, Christina Hodson. Man, The Flash must be one of the best fucking movies ever for this woman to keep getting work, because Birds of Prey, I enjoyed Birds of Prey, but I thought the script was really poor. That was the weakest aspect. Crystal Henry and comics writer Tom King. This is another thing that I like really didn't like. I love Tom King's comics. His Batman run, his run on Mr. Miracle, great. But if there's one thing DC films should learn from, it's to not get comic book writers involved in the movies. They are not screenwriters. You know what happened last time we got a comic book writer involved? Jeff Johns. He is the one who fucked the DC universe when Zack was in charge. He is the one responsible for getting Joss Whedon on for Justice League. We don't need comic book writers in the screenwriting room. Gunn indicated that at least some of these writers would continue working on DCU projects, including Henry, who is co-showrunning Waller. Sat down in a room for a few days and we started to bash out what the basic overall plan would be. Not so much that it ties your wrists, but enough that we know what the basic story is, where we're going, and it's something that we'll continue to do. Okay. Okay, and then they just kind of get into, yes, the Batman as a release date. Only Superman and Batman have release dates. Okay, so let's get into the actual slate here and see what is happening. So the one that we knew about even prior to this was the new Superman film, which is now titled Superman Legacy and is going to open on July 11th, 2025. It will mark the start of the DCU, as Safran put it, but it will not be an origin story of the Man of Steel. At least that is what's happening. Thank fuck for that. Don't need to see Superman's origin again. Don't. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. Gunn is writing the project, and Safran hopes that Gunn can be persuaded to direct it. Please don't. Get somebody else, please. You know what happened the last time that Gunn wrote a film and someone else directed it? We got Zack Snyder's first movie, Dawn of the Dead, and it turned out awesome. I think when Gunn just writes something and he gets a director on there to kind of provide a different tone and contrast with his script, it can work. But I have a feeling James Gunn he comes off to me as a man who acts humble but is actually extremely ego-driven with the projects that he chooses and the way he executes them. Like, don't get me wrong, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is actually one of my favorite Marvel films. I love that movie. But like I feel like he feels he needs to personally be involved in this Superman movie down to every last aspect of it. And I just don't think he's a good fit for it. That's just my opinion. Like, yeah, I'm on broken record here. I just need to move on. David Zaslav made no secret that rebooting Superman was a top priority for the company, as he spent much of 2022 searching for the right leaders for DC Studios. So it's little surprise Gunn and Safran are turning to the most recognizable superhero in the world to lead the charge for the DCU. Superman is for everyone. Yes, absolutely. That's a 4-quadrant film that should speak to everyone in the world. That angle I can understand. I mean, despite my love for Man of Steel, it definitely was a divisive film. And I get the business angle here. They want something that's gonna gross like $1 billion, which Superman should every time. So, yeah, I think I understand that aspect of it. I just do something that appeals to 4-quadrant. Just don't insert stupid one-liners for every scene. That's all I ask, James Gunn. Well, I also would ask that you get Henry back, but that's not happening. That's the other thing. I need to see who they cast as Superman. This better not be like that fucking Ted 2 clip where they cast Jonah Hill. A separate Superman movie produced by J.J. Abrams through Bad Robot and written by Ta-Nehisi Coates remains in development and would exist outside the DCU. I don't know why that is still moving forward. J.J. Abrams got hired by WB 6 years ago. They paid him like $500 million, something ridiculous, to develop content for them, and he has done jack shit for them. He's just taken their money and run, and he has nothing to show for it. I doubt that Superman film even moves forward. I would rather see Michael B. Jordan's Val Zod film that he was developing for DC or for HBO Max. I would rather see that than whatever this Abrams film would. So this was interesting. The Authority, which is based on a Wildstorm comic that I have never read. I'm going to read it now that this is happening. This actually sounds interesting because it's something that isn't going to give me pain as a DCEU fan, the old of the Snyderverse. This is something that's kind of divorced from that, so I'm a little bit excited about this. Global fame to relative obscurity. Superman Legacy will lead directly into the Authority. So this is the second movie in the plan, which is interesting. An ensemble movie about superhumans who have a less than idealistic approach to saving the world. See, this is something I would be excited about because this is almost another deconstructionist vision of superheroes, like what Zach enjoys, and or almost like The Boys on Amazon. So that's what this sounds like to me, at least. As a comic, The Authority was created by Warren Ellis, who I love, and Brian Hitch, as an ends justify the means superhero team, an approach that appealed to Gunn and Safran's desire to diversify the storytelling within the DCU. Yeah, this actually sounds good. So you don't want Zack Snyder, but you'll take it a step further and have a completely dark superhero team that is even more. I'm gonna assume that they're even more murderous than any of Zack's characters, because it says the ends justify the means. So that tells me that these guys kill criminals. I have no problem with that, but it's total hypocrisy to have that and then to get rid of Zack. Film is being written now, but he declined to say who is the screenwriter. That's weird. Why wouldn't he say? I swear to God, if it's him again, if James Gunn takes control of like half of these projects, like writing all of them, then that just tells me he only gives a shit about himself. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, this was the most mixed feeling thing about what I saw today. The Brave and the Bold, which will introduce DCU's version of Batman, completely separate from Robert Pattinson. So we're gonna have two Batmen still. So you're gonna have two competing versions of the character, which is just gonna divide the fan base again, continuing the drama. I think that part of it is annoying as shit to me. The part of it that's exciting to me is the fact that this is going to be Robin's first appearance back on the big screen since fucking Joel Schumacher ruined him. But, and even cooler than that, is that this is going to be Damian Wayne, who is one of the best Robins, if not the best. My favorite's Tim Drake, but yeah, I think it's really cool that Damian's coming in here with. So I'm almost wondering how bloody this movie will be, because Damian Wayne is such a violent character who, like, he's he's really contentious with his dad because he's Bruce Wayne's son, Talia al Ghul, and it'll be really interesting to see that kind of dynamic between the two of them. The most interesting part about their beginning of their relationship was that Damian was raised by the League of Assassins, and Batman needs to rein him in to not kill criminals, and he's got this son who like won't, like, he can't control, like, he needs to like basically train him to be a better vigilante. So that this could be really cool, but again, it's like this would be a lot cooler if they just fully rebooted everything and you didn't have Aquaman still, and you didn't have all these other actors from the old DCEU still involved. Thing that worries me though is that Tom King is in the writer's room. Which again, comic book writers are not screenwriters. Get a professional screenwriter. And if you're gonna get a comic writer, why don't you get Grant Morrison, who actually wrote the damn comics? So many of these decisions are just questionable to me. Okay, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I have not read the comic run that this is based on, but I will now because, I want to be a little bit more informed. It's by Tom King, so it's probably really good. I think it's very interesting that in this first phase they're doing both a Superman and a Supergirl. And my other question is with the upcoming Flash movie, which James did confirm that with the Flash movie, and this gets me a little bit more excited to see it just because it tells me that the Flash and these DC films coming out this year are going to be actually relevant to what's going forward. So at least with this plan, I don't think that these movies are write-offs anymore. They can actually have a place going forward. But anyway, with this Flash movie, there is a Supergirl in that movie played by Sasha Calle, or Kaye, I think you pronounce it. So is she going to be Supergirl in this film? Or are they just going to get rid of her too? That would be a real shame for her to appear in one film and then have to be recast. I'm assuming she got into that with the expectation that she would get her own movie. So I honestly hope that it's Sasha, because she actually looks really badass in trailers for the Flash. Like, just from the still images that we've seen, I haven't really seen her in action yet. Okay, and then this was really surprising as the final announced voice crack as the final announced film for this slate. This isn't the entire chapter 1 slate. This is just what they could reveal. Is a Swamp Thing, which I think that could be really cool. I've been kind of waiting for Swamp Thing in live action again. I know they did that TV show a few years ago, but talking like a movie, like big budget. So, easily the most extreme example of Gunn and Safran's conviction to diversify the DCU, Swamp Thing will investigate the dark origins of Swamp Thing, Safran said, through the prism of horror. So, yeah, and then they just go into kind of the that they're excited for this. This is one of the coolest ideas from what was announced today, because they're going into his origins. That tells me that they might adapt the Alan Moore series, which is honestly one of the best comics of all time. If you haven't read that series, go ahead and read it. It's great. And that it's going to be like a straight up horror film. I honestly, I have more faith, at least in these guys, that they'll actually deliver a horror film. Unlike Marvel, who said that Doctor Strange 2 would be a horror film, but it really wasn't. Like, the thing with the MCU, off topic, that is really annoying to me is that they promise all of these genres, but then it just boils down to the Marvel formula. It's like it's not really a horror film, or it's not really this or that. The only film I can remember that really committed to that idea was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That was a political thriller movie through and through. Anyway, back to DC. So that was all the movies. Now we're getting into television. Creature Commandos. See, I knew with James Gunn that there was going to be lots of weird shit announced, and it's like, that's cool, but it's like, don't you want to like get your core characters right first before you dive into this? Like, again, this just feels like James Gunn wanting to put his stamp on this rather than what's best for the fans. But I mean, this could be a cool show. It's about Frankenstein's monster teaming up with a werewolf, vampire, and a gorgon to fight Nazis in World War II. That sounds cool. And I do love the classic monsters. The Universal black and white movies are some of my favorites. At the same time, this does kind of sound like, whoa, isn't this so random and crazy? Shock value sort of thing. It's like, yeah, you can have all this random stuff all you want, but you have to back it up with a good narrative. But it could be good. Apparently, Weasel from the Suicide Squad and Rick Flagg's father will be in this. So yeah, again, Gunn totally favoring his previous DC projects to fit in with this, because James Gunn's gonna do what's best for James Gunn. So I mean, yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this one. It might be all right. Then Waller. So again, this is James Gunn putting together something that supports what he was doing previously. And I guess even with that in mind, I could be excited about this because, like, as pissed off as I am about the the total nepotism being displayed by Gunn for all of his previous work, I thought Peacemaker season 1 was really good. I enjoyed it. Aside from the last episode where that with that stupid Aquaman joke, that was cringe. But aside from that, I thought the show was really fun and really I thought it actually took itself a lot more seriously than the Suicide Squad did, which I enjoyed. So I mean, if this is a continuation of that, I could be excited. Amanda Waller, Viola Davis's Amanda Waller is perfect casting. You know, if they're not going to do a full reboot, at least she's staying because she's great. So this is another one of those projects that I could potentially be really into. Both Creature Commandos and Waller are expected to debut before Superman Legacy. So that could potentially be even next year or beginning of 2025, which is exciting. Because after Aquaman releases in December, the only DC project confirmed for 2024 is Joker Part 2 in that October. So if there's nothing that year, they're basically taking a whole year off to get all this together, which, I understand. Okay, this was the other project that I was most excited about besides the Authority, which was Lanterns. I've been waiting for a great Green Lantern thing since the Ryan Reynolds movie botched it so bad. I actually really liked Ryan Reynolds in the role. I just thought the movie was not great. But yeah, this sounds like it could be possibly the best thing here. I've been waiting, like I said, for Green Lantern. It's going to be a huge HBO quality event that is very much in the vein of True Detective. That's interesting. Focusing on Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, that's fucking great. I'm so excited about that. I love Jon Stewart, but my favorite has always been Hal Jordan. I'm so glad that both of them are in this. You know, it basically allows the Jon Stewart people to be happy, but then not forget about Hal Jordan because Hal Jordan's the original. The original is actually Alan Scott, but Hal Jordan's the most recognizable. Uh, so that's awesome. Uh, yeah, it's like a detective story on Earth. That's really interesting that they're going that route. I need to see who's like kind of running this show as well to see what the tone will be. But out of everything that was announced today, this is what I'm most excited about because this is what I have the most faith in actually being good. So, Green Lantern's coming finally. Awesome. Okay, Paradise Lost. This one could be good, but I think it's questionable as well. It's a Game of Thrones-ish story set on Themyscira before the birth of Diana, aka Wonder Woman. A political intrigue behind a society of all women. So again, this is based on a series by uh, Phil Jimenez and George Perez, who George Perez recently passed away. He was one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. He did such a great. I've read his original Wonder Woman series, and he drew the amazing Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was one of the original DC crossover events. The guy was a legend, and he sadly passed away from a cancer last year. Um, so, if you haven't read any of his stuff, please go do it. Um, so apparently, this is based on one of his titles, which I haven't read. Uh, just from the premise, it sounds interesting, but I don't know why they're just not doing another Wonder Woman thing. I guess because they're waiting to see if Gal wants to continue. Yeah, I don't know. This one's up in the air for me. See. And the final thing that was announced was Booster Gold, if you don't know who Booster Gold is, he is it says right here, in the 25th century, Mike is a disgraced former football star, uses a time machine on display in the Metropolis Space Museum, and then from that he becomes like a superhero in the present time, and he's a really like comedic character. So if anything in this entire slate is going to have Gunn's comedic tone, it's this, and it's the most appropriate thing to have that. So I suggest they get all of the dumb humor out of their system and put it in Booster Gold, because at least there it will be appropriate. So I mean, yeah, this could be a fun series. I know a lot of people have been waiting for Booster Gold. Uh, and the upcoming Blue Beetle movie that's coming out in August, I think they said that is tying in with their plans for the DCU. So from that, you might get your Booster Gold and Blue Beetle crossover, which is like a big thing in the comics. So yeah, that's everything that was announced today. I am excited about the Batman Part 2, obviously, and Joker. And then as far as DCU stuff goes, I'm most excited about Green Lantern and The Authority. It's such a shame, too, because you'd think I'd be over the moon about a new Superman film and a new Batman and Robin film. Those are like, just from what's happened, I need to see directors. I need to see who's writing it potentially, because they were kind of vague on that. I know James is writing Superman, and I need to see casting. I need to like know more about these before I can really write them off completely or be excited. I'm nervous. I'm fucking nervous about this whole thing. It's like I felt like the whole domino effect of what happened when WB decided to cut 30 minutes out of Batman v Superman has like haunted them to this very day. Yeah, I can only imagine what would have happened if that didn't happen, and if they didn't hire Joss Whedon to reshoot the Justice League. Like, I feel like by now we would have already had our entire Snyderverse, and then they could reboot everything. But we can't worry about what might have been. We have to move forward. So this is what's happening with DC. Um, I will say that I am getting more excited about the Flash movie. They're gonna put a teaser out for the Super Bowl. I will do a reaction for that when it comes out. Super Bowl is gonna be a huge day for trailers, so I'll probably make a few videos. Um, yeah, so I thought the Flash movie was gonna be a mess when I initially heard it was gonna reset the DCU. Now that I know there's no chance for the Snyderverse, I'm getting excited about it just as a final time that I get to see Ben as Batman and potentially Henry as Superman. I don't know if they cut his scenes for that. Um, so I guess the Flash is like my kind of swan song for the Snyderverse. So I'll be excited for that. And apparently, from what James and other people are saying, it's like one of the best superhero films ever made. So it better deliver. Otherwise, it's going to be one of the biggest flops for them, I think. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. I will have more DC videos coming up for the DCU and potentially other DC stuff as news comes in. But today was the big day, so yeah, if you like this content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Bye.